In 2026, the most powerful GPU you can buy costs around $9,000, which is already insane for just one part of a PC. But what if I told you NVIDIA launched something in 2012 that was even more expensive? The Quadro 7000, priced at $14,499. That's a lot of money. You could buy a whole stick of RAM with that, bruh. But at this crazy price, that made me wonder, can a $14,000 GPU from 2012 actually run modern games? Well, there's only one way to find out. To find out, I had to first find a Quadro 7000 for sale, and this was where I realized just how obscure it is. As of recording this video, there is only one other video on this platform about the Quadro 7000. If you search the Quadro 7000 on YouTube, all you're gonna find is a video on the Quadro 7000 Plex, a completely different thing, my video on the Quadro 6000, a completely different GPU, and one singular video of someone testing the display of the Quadro 7000. But not a single video testing it in any games. So if no one can tell me why this GPU used to cost $14,499, I'm gonna buy it and see for myself. But when it came time to actually buying the GPU, I honestly could not find it on any local marketplaces. I searched on Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, and the only place I could find this GPU was on eBay. And even then, there were only 3 listings. Now you might assume that a GPU this old would be completely obsolete and worth absolutely nothing at this point, but it actually still goes for over $100 on the used market. Now I know that's like a 99% discount off the original price, but you can't tell me that $100 is nothing, bro. And if you can, send me that shit right now, please. The cheapest listing I could find was $120 plus shipping. And when I actually bought it, it turned out to be $154 with shipping and taxes. So overall, it cost me about 3 times more than the Quadro 6000 that I bought for a previous video. Kind of fitting that 14 years later, the Quadro 7000 is still 3 times more expensive than the 6000. 11 days later, I finally got the GPU in hand, but my stupid ass decided not to test it and left the box sitting in my house for a few months. And by this point, I was 2 months past the return window. Sometimes I don't know how many working brain cells I have left. I could have easily tested this GPU, the second I got it, but I got really lazy. But because of this laziness, I'm genuinely worried if it's actually going to work at all. Now that I realized just how big a mistake I made, I wasted no time trying to get this thing to work. The only problem is that the GPU doesn't have HDMI or DisplayPort, so I can't use a modern monitor. I have to use my old LG Twin Towers monitor instead, which is weird because the lower tier Quadro 6000 had DisplayPort, even though it's cheaper and older. Don't know why this one comes with 2 DVI ports. Doesn't really make any sense to me. Anyways, I connected the DVI cable to both the GPU and the monitor, and when I first tried booting it up, it did not post. I tried a couple more times and even switched the port that I was connecting to, and still there was no display. Now I'm not new to getting old GPUs up and running, so I tried some solutions that worked in the past, like plugging in my keyboard and mouse to the case instead of the motherboard, and even going as far as to using an ancient keyboard that uses a completely different port. But even after these weird solutions, none of it made a difference. And honestly, I was very surprised because the Quadro 6000, as I said, was such an easy GPU to work with, but this one, I don't know what's going on. So there was only one thing I could think of that might fix it, and it's by changing my BIOS settings. The only thing is, I can't change my BIOS settings if I can't even boot into the BIOS. Unfortunately, my test PC just doesn't have integrated graphics, so if the GPU doesn't work, then I don't get an image, and without an image, I can't get into the BIOS. So I rebooted the PC with a different GPU just to change the BIOS settings, and by forcing legacy BIOS, I might be able to make something work. But still, it was not working. At this point, over an hour has gone by, and I was getting very frustrated. Since I bought the GPU, I've made basically 0 progress. The GPU was getting warm and it was clearly getting power, but without a display, I was starting to think that it was a dead GPU. I even tried plugging in my Quadro 6000 to pre-install the Quadro 7000 drivers, since I'd assumed that any drivers that work for the 6000 would work on the 7000, the same way that the RTX 4060, 4070, 4080, and 4090 all use the same driver package because they're all in the same generation. But either my assumption was wrong or my GPU was dead, because the solution was still not the answer. The listing didn't specifically say it was a working, tested GPU, which means he could technically get away with selling me a brick. So I shot him a message asking him if he tested it, and he never replied. Normally I joke about getting scammed because it rarely happens, but in this situation, he quite literally does not have to help me because it's my fault that I missed the return window. And with it being well over 30 days since I received the item, eBay's buyer protection is not gonna help me out. Whatever the case is, I'm determined to make this video, even if it meant spending another $150 on another Quadro 7000. But before I go and buy another one of these, I wanted to make sure that this one was truly a dead GPU. I mean, I only really tested it on one PC so far, and it would suck if I spent $150 to replace replace something that might not need to be replaced in the first place. So I tried it again, but this time on my mid-range test PC. Maybe the motherboard on the mid-range PC will act nicer